Welcome to What the Wrestling, the podcast where you break down the biggest moments, hottest takes, and the wildest stories from the world of pro wrestling. Whether you're a diehard fan or just stepping into the squared circle, we're here to give you the real scoop on everything happening in the ring.
I'm your host, RJD, and we're about to take a ride through the latest and greatest in pro wrestling. Get ready for all our hot takes, deep dives, and all the wrestling you never knew you needed.
Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe button and join What the Wrestling family so you never miss an episode. Now let's step into the ring.
What's up, everybody? RJD here. And as always, we are here to bring you the wrestling news. But unfortunately, yesterday we lost an icon in the sport. Wrestling fans lost Hulk Hogan. Yes, Hulk Hogan passed away yesterday at 71 years old. Now, there has been a lot of back and forth online. A lot of people angry, a lot of people happy, a lot of people with mixed emotions. Excuse that. I am one of those people with mixed emotions. What I will never do is I will never play around when it comes to people that pass away. Somebody lost a family member yesterday. Somebody lost a father. Somebody lost a cousin, an uncle, whatever. And I will never play around when people pass away. I don't play with that. I mean, some people online, they're like, they were freaking happy as all get out yesterday. Me, I can't do it. I'm not that guy to, be happy when people pass away. I just have to look at it objectively because at the end of the day, there was Terry Bollea, the person, and then there was the immortal Hulk Hogan. And without Hulk Hogan, wrestling is not what it is today. Without him, without Vince, without that heel turn NWO, without him on Rocky 3, without things like that, you do not get the wrestling you get today without that. We have to acknowledge that. Now, Terry Bollea as a person may not have been the greatest person due to a lot of things that went on. I'll get into some of them here, but his contribution to wrestling, to sports entertainment, his contribution to the world. If there's a Mount Rushmore, he's on it in regards to wrestling. So we can't sit up here and discredit everything Hulk Hogan has done because of the person that Terry Bollea was. Can't do that. It doesn't minimize his contribution. Does it hurt his legacy? Does it tarnish it a little bit? Does it affect how people will view his legacy? Yes. But does it take away from what his accomplishments and everything that he meant to wrestling? No. There's a lot of people who started watching wrestling because of Hulk Hogan, Wheaties, eat your vitamins, things like that. 20-inch pythons, brother. There's a lot of people who grew up on that. There's a lot of people that are wrestling fans today because in their childhood, they came across Hulk Hogan. I watched Hulk Hogan. Now, I'm not old enough to remember like the 80s stuff, but some of the 90s stuff, NWO, oh yeah, I was around for that. I was around for that and watching religiously. Monday Night Nitro, WWF Monday Raw's War, Monday Night Raw, and I remember that heel turn. I remember Scott Hall and Kevin Nash showing up Hey, yo, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Like, I remember that vividly. Like it was yesterday, him coming down. Oh my God, Tony Schiavone. Oh my God, he's the third man and all that other stuff. I remember that vividly. Vividly. Remember that. So without that, I mean, listen, when that happened, WWE was on its back foot. They were playing defense when that happened. They almost went out of business because of that NWO stuff. That changed everything. That changed wrestling. Without NWO, we don't get DX. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen if that heel turn doesn't happen. He took a chance, and at that time, he took a chance on himself because he was the All-American, good guy, real American, and he's flipped the script. And without that heel turn, who knows what direction wrestling goes in. So I definitely understand his contribution to wrestling and the major impact that he played in the sport. Because let us not make any mistakes. He played a major impact in the sport. Without Hulk Hogan, a lot of things don't happen. Like, you got to look at it in hindsight. But I still can separate the man from Hulk Hogan. I can separate the two. Terry Bollea may not have been the best person. Hulk Hogan meant a lot to a lot of people. And there are a lot of people online yesterday, very sad. Ric Flair was in shambles, because they were good friends. A lot of people putting up good stuff. Vince McMahon putting up good stuff. Sting, I saw put up some good stuff. And I'm sure there'll be more things that come out today as time goes on. And you'll start to see, you started to see it yesterday. But it was a rough week, man. We had Malcolm Jamal Warner pass away. Ozzy Osbourne passes away. Hulk Hogan passes away. It was a rough week, man. Especially, and I'm going to get into, what happened and all of that, but I got to speak on this. Especially how some of these people went out yesterday. Like, Malcolm Jamal Warner goes out, riptide, rip current, whatever you want to call it. Pulls him out. His daughter gets saved. I didn't read the full report, but his daughter gets saved. He ends up drowning. You cannot, it's just, even the best swimmers in the world, you get the right rip current, right at the right time. It don't matter what you do, you're done. And it sucks because it's sort of, what's the guy from Crime Time? It's like the way he went out, saving his child, and he passes away. It's so unfortunate. I believe he might have been on vacation. So unfortunate, so heartbreaking. He, like another person who meant a lot to a lot of people's childhoods. A lot of people grew up watching grew up watching him. I was one of them, and he passes away. It's crazy. It's unfortunate. It's very sad. Then you got Ozzy Osbourne, who just freaking had his last performance. It's like he couldn't really walk anymore. He couldn't really stand up. And it's like he said this is his last. I just saw it on TikTok. I just saw it. And I had to look it up on YouTube and stuff. And me and my wife were just sitting here talking about Ozzy Osbourne, talking about some of his music. And me and my wife are Ozzy fans. And we were like, damn. He was like, yo, my wife was like, yo, did you see Ozzy's last performance? He's like going to stop performing. He's not doing so well. He's like, he was sitting down. He can't really stand up. I was like, what? Ozzy Osbourne was having issues when we were kids. So it's like, he made it all the way this far. He was still touring and doing his thing. And he had the whole reality show and stuff like that. And I watched it. My wife watched it. So it's like when we were kids, Ozzy was having problems. So it's like, he was dealing with a lot of health issues and things of that nature. So, he makes it all the way here. We knew he was still touring and stuff. But then when she showed me, I was like, oh, shit. I had no idea. It was like that bad. Obviously, somebody tells you, yeah, I'm going to shut it down. I'm not touring anymore. It's bad when they shut it down like that. So it was just a rough week. They always say, death comes in threes. Lost three amazing talents, three different people, three different industries, and we lost three incredible people this week. And every time, and before I get into it, I'll say this: every time you see somebody that you grew up watching pass away, it's almost surreal, because the little kid in me is like, man, that's Hulk Hogan. Like, he's a superhero. Like, these superheroes don't pass away. What is this? Like, you see people from your childhood. And I remember my mother saying this when I was a kid, and people from her childhood would pass away. It was like, wow, because they grew up listening to this person's music, or they grew up watching this person on TV every week for weeks on end. You see that type of stuff, and it's like, you don't think that they're going to pass away one day. Like, it's like it doesn't compute in your mind. And then when that person passes away, it's like a piece of your childhood passes away. It's like a piece of you passes away, because you grew up watching this person week in, week out. You grew up listening to this person's music. You probably still listen to this person's music. I still listen to Ozzy Osbourne's music. So and it's crazy, because a couple of months ago, when I was going to work, I recently watched the Hogan end, because I love crazy crowd reactions and crazy wrestling fans. I love it, the energy. And I recently went back and watched Rock Hogan, when Hulk Hogan powers up, and he's like, and the crowd is going absolutely ape shit, and The Rock with all his animated, that was just freaking magic, those two. And I was like, holy shit. He drops the leg drop on him. I was like, wow, that crowd was absolutely going ape shit. How do you follow that? You don't. That's the incorrect answer. You don't. So, when people like this from your childhood pass away, a piece of you passes away with them. And it's like, damn. Because those were pivotal, those teenage years, those childhood years, you remember those years. There are certain things that happen that you just remember those years. And they will never, no matter how, you could be 80 years old, you'll always remember where you were when certain people, where Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. You just remember where you were, Rock and Hogan, how you were sitting in anticipation, wanting to see that. You remember the end. This is the NWO, brother, and spray painting everybody's back. Like, you remember stuff like that. So, like I said, I can separate the man from the wrestler. And even though I don't agree with a lot of that stuff, obviously, being a black guy, I don't agree with a lot of that stuff he was talking about. I don't agree with a lot of that stuff he said. I thought a lot of that stuff was absolutely terrible. We're going to talk about Hulk Hogan today. We're not going to talk about Terry Bollea. But you can't talk about one without talking about the other. And that goes the good and the bad. You just can't. So let's get into what happened. Hulk Hogan. And I'm reading this off of the New York Times. So we're just going to go through some stuff real quick. Hulk Hogan, whose flamboyance and star power helped transform the professional wrestler from a low-budget regional attraction into a multi-billion-dollar industry, died Thursday in Clearwater, Florida. He was 71 years old. The police and fire department personnel in Clearwater were called to Hogan's home on Clearwater Beach, where Hogan was treated for a cardiac arrest. The police said in a news alert post on Facebook, he was taken to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead, they said. Hogan was the face of pro wrestling for decades, with his blonde hair and a horseshoe mustache, colorful bandanas, and massive biceps, which he referred to as the 24-inch python's brother. And let's get into his last couple of years, how he was he spoke last year at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, tearing off his shirt to reveal a Trump van shirt underneath. He was earlier involved in a high-profile lawsuit in 2012, bankrolled by billionaire Peter Thiel against Gay Walker, I guess I'm mispronouncing that. Please forgive me. The media company, after Walker posted a video of Hulk Hogan having sex with his friend's wife, he won on the case of invasion and privacy grounds, reaping millions in damages. Hogan's routine before a wrestling match was guaranteed to send fans into a crazy. This goes on to all of that stuff. So let's get into some of his early years. Okay. Hogan was born Terry Jean Bollea on August 11th, 1953 in Augusta, Georgia. His father, Peter, was a construction foreman. His mother, Ruth Moody Bollea, was a dance teacher. So he comes from humble beginnings. He didn't come from crazy means and all that extra stuff. He attended the University of South Florida, but dropped out, choosing the wrestling mat over the classroom. So it's funny because he actually started out as a musician. So I just recently learned this. I didn't even know that. I was reading up on what was going on yesterday, and just reading up on his history. And he actually, I believe, he played bass, and he wanted to be a musician. He was in a band. I guess it didn't go anywhere, and somebody saw him and said, "Listen, try this thing out." And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I heard him tell this story when he first started wrestling. The guy who was, I guess, mentoring him, or I forget the name. Maybe it'll come up in this article. They actually broke his ankle to see if he would quit. The guy broke his freaking ankle to see if he would quit. That's nuts, first of all. And second of all, he came back. He just kept going. Broke his ankle, see if he would quit. He came back, and it was like, this guy's like, "You're not going to break me." He started wrestling in 1977. Like many in the sport, he was a big man, 300 pounds in his prime, and he was 6'8". And he famously said that because of all the leg drops and all the back surgeries, he actually lost a couple of inches in height because of all the back surgeries he had, which was kind of crazy. This goes on to talk about how he adopted the name Hulk because of the comparisons to a muscular comic book character on the CBS television show The Incredible Hulk. I believe he got that name from Vince McMahon Sr., that he dubbed him Hulk Hogan. So this goes on to talk about. So let's talk about this. So he developed a rivalry with the champion Bob Backlund, a traditional Midwestern milk drinking good guy, and Hulk Hogan captured greater fame after appearing in the movie Rocky III in 1982. He played a wrestler. Thunder Lips, who takes on Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, and who also put up some nice things on Twitter to say about him. And a charity wrestler versus boxer match, the preening, egotistic Thunder Lips batters an unprepared Rocky, throwing him out of the ring and onto the crowd. Despite his brief screen time, Hogan created the character, and that stuck in viewers' minds. No mean feat in the film that also starred the bombastic Mr. T. Now, he didn't have a large cameo, but people don't understand that his appearance in Rocky III really put him on the map and really made him a household name. And that was good for him, and it was good for wrestling in general, that Rocky III appearance. Rocky III was a huge movie. Sylvester Stallone was a huge star. And that the stuff he did, obviously, with WWF, and then the later, he became a huge superstar at that point. And then he also became another huge superstar because he had the Andre Giant stuff, and then he had the Rocky III appearance, and then he became a huge superstar again when he turned heel. So it's like he was already a superstar as a good guy, and then he became another superstar as a bad guy. Because listen, I always compare things to, do casual fans know what's going on? My mother knows who John Cena is. My mother knows who The Rock is. My mother knew what was going on with Hollywood Hogan. Even my mother. my mother grew up a wrestling fan, so it's not like she didn't like wrestling. So my mother was a wrestling fan, but when my mother could tell me who's who, then you know that person's a star. And during that time, especially in that late 90s, 2000s, when NWO got formed, wrestling was a booming. It was everywhere. Wrestling was everywhere. It was on Sports Center. It was on the news. It was everywhere. And everybody, not nobody, but everybody knew about wrestlers. That probably had to be probably the biggest time. I mean, the millions and millions of views they were getting on network TV, it was crazy. That time was just nuts. Absolutely crazy. It goes on to talk about his various things, and let's just look at some of his accomplishments. So he won the WWE title 6 times. He headlined WrestleMania multiple times. And as for me, him and Warrior, him and Savage, the superpowers, him slamming Andre, huge deal. It's like without these things happening, who knows? It's like everything had to happen the way it happened, in the way it happened, because of everything that was going on. WCW championship 6 times. And unfortunately, when you had the finger poke of doom, that was the beginning of the end for WCW. Multiple Royal Rumble winner, formed the NWO, became Hollywood Hogan. I mean, just absolutely a ton of accomplishments here. And because of the things that happened, we had to sit here and be objective. But we have to talk about also the stuff that happened when his son got into that accident, and then the bad thing. And I'm not going to repeat all of that stuff. I'm not going to, like I said, I respect the dead. I'm not going to sit up here and disrespect the man when he's no longer here. I talked about this on my channel. I've talked about, how I didn't like it. We have to acknowledge that stuff. And that stuff hurt his legacy. The stuff with his son, where he's talking about his son and he's talking bad about the person that passed away, the racist comments and racist remarks he made, and then when he tried to clean it up in the locker room, and he was talking to the guys, and he was like, yeah, just be careful, don't watch yourself, because people are always going to record you. You don't want people recording you. It's like, brother, come on, man, just you know what I'm saying? If you fucked up, just say, yo, I fucked up. It's okay. It's not okay what you said, and you got to hold that L and the consequences and repercussions. But if you messed up, my mama always told me, listen, when you mess up, shut up. She used to say, shut up, man up, and tell the truth. I messed up. Be a man of your word. She always used to tell me that. She still tells me that to this day. If you messed up, shut up, man up, and say my bad and keep it moving. In that order. Shut up, man up, stand up straight, chin up. I'm sorry I messed up. Don't lie, don't beat around the bush, don't try to explain it. Just keep it like that. And his last wrestling appearance, he came out with Jimmy Hart to Real American, one of the greatest wrestling themes of all time. Got to be in my top 5 wrestling themes. It just fit perfectly with Hulk Hogan and the ripping of the shirt. And he got booed out of the building. And that speaks volumes. And a lot of people got on him. A lot of people, I wouldn't say laughed at it, but a lot of people were like, hey, this is well-deserved. You fucked up. And a lot of people say, oh, because he supported Trump. Nah, that crap ain't had nothing to do with Trump. Nothing. It had nothing to do with Trump. And it had everything to do with the bad things that were happening and the stuff that he was saying and the person that he was being his last 10 years, last 15 years on this earth. So we have to take the good with the bad, but I'm not going to lie. I have mixed emotions. And I tell everybody, I'm not going to be the person who sits up here and says, oh, I'm glad that person's gone. Da, 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 da. No, I'm not. No, not doing that. You gotta listen, when people are here and they could defend themselves, and they're public figures. When you're a public figure, there's a certain amount of privacy that you throw away. And when you say stuff on this internet, you have to be held accountable for the things that you say. When you say things publicly, you have to be accountable for the things that you say. And even though what you said may not have been intended for public ears, you still said it, and you got to stand on what you said. And he said some things and did some things that, weren't favorable to his character. And I know he was trying to, I know he was doing he had his beer and he was doing some things with Eric Bischoff, but it tainted his legacy, and the fans let him know about it in his last public appearance. So all I'm saying is, as I'm not going to disrespect the man because he's no longer here, I grew up on the man. I didn't grow up in a lot of 80s stuff because I was born in 87. So a lot of that stuff I missed, and I had to go back and watch in the 90s when I was in the late 90s, when a lot of this stuff became available, or they had specials on TV, or this, that, and the third. So I had to go back and watch a lot of that, the Andre the Giant, because I wasn't, I was a baby. Say I was born in 87. But I remember the Monday Night Wars. I remember, and I knew who Hulk Hogan was. I remember watching Rocky 3, and I remember, what I'm saying? So a lot of the stuff I had to go back and watch, and that's cool. That's okay. And I appreciated Hulk Hogan, and I knew he was a big, big star. And I was like, man, I want 20-inch pythons, but I'm like, I'm not getting 20-inch pythons. It's it's not happening, So, seeing a lot of those jack dudes, especially in the 80s and 90s, the Stallones, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the 20-inch pythons, brother, and Randy Savage and all those guys. I was like, when I get older, I'm gonna get in the gym, baby. So it definitely rubbed off on me, because I was like, I'm going to get in the gym when I get older. I'm going to get big. But at the end of the day, he meant a lot to a lot of people. He meant a lot to a lot of people. Like I said, just thinking about Hulk Hogan, the character, the NWO, it was cool. It was cool. He was a jerk. He was beating up all the baby faces. He was a bad guy that I actually liked. The old WCW, where they used to throw the damn cans and the water bottles and or throw all that stuff into the ring. It was like, that's why I like WCW, because it wasn't WWF. It was different. They were doing some stuff different. They had a sense of realism that WWF didn't have until DX came along. And then they kind of switched to the Attitude Era. But then you had the rise of Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H and all those guys. But it had WCW had a different sense of just realism. Like, I remember where I was and where I was sitting when Kevin Nash picked up Rey Mysterio and threw his ass into the production truck. I said, and I was a kid, and I shouldn't have said this, and I said, oh, shit. Oh, did my mom hear that? I remember watching WCW Monday Nitro and seeing that and going to school the next day, because I was in middle school at the time. And it was like, yo, did you see what happened on Nitro? Yo, did you see what happened on Monday Night Raw? Yo, did you see what The Rock did? Yo, did you see what Hogan did? Yo, I was hoping they would lose. Yo, Goldberg speared the holy hell out of that person. I remember going, I was a teenager at that point. I remember I was faithfully every night. And I wasn't a WCW or WWF guy. I was a both. I liked wrestling. I saw both. WCW had a freaking commercial, WWF. WWF had a commercial, WCW. So I was flipping back between both, trying to see both at the same time. So I was that guy. So we cannot ignore the man's contributions to everything that has gone on in wrestling in general. It just sucks that, the bad things that happened in the last 10 to 15 years. And the one other thing I will say, the two things that happened, especially outside of wrestling, when they had that trial and he had Vince McMahon's back, and a lot of people thought him and Vince weren't cool at the time. They were not best friends. And he had Vince's back. That shocked the hell out of me, especially going back and read it and seeing documentaries on it. That was very shocking. Not going to lie to you there. And then also, when they tried to unionize, or they were about to unionize, and this is the story, that Hulk Hogan went and snitched on everybody and said, yo, they're going to unionize, and this person is the ringleader, and you need to go. They're coming for you, Vince. And they don't have a union till this day because of that. So those are two very pivotal things that also happened. That's kind of crazy because him and Vince were cool at the time of that trial. And he went up there and, testified in Vince's favor. So that was shocking. And even back in the day, he dimed everybody out. So listen, I'll close it up with this. Hulk Hogan meant a lot to a lot of people. Hulk Hogan meant a lot to a lot of people's childhoods. Especially a lot of the Gen Xers. They grew up on Hulk Hogan. They watched Hulk Hogan. They cheered for Hulk Hogan. They remember the old WrestleManias. They remember the Andre the Giants, the Randy Savage, and all the beautiful, beautiful stories that he told inside the ring. And he influenced a lot of people to want to go get big, get in the ring and get jacked, eat their vitamins, Wheaties boxes, and all this other stuff. I'm pretty sure he was on the Wheaties box too. So he influenced a lot of people, and we cannot discredit what this man has meant to wrestling, period. Sports entertainment, wrestling, whatever you want to call it. We cannot discredit what this man meant to wrestling, period, because of the person, Terry Bollea. Hulk Hogan is a wrestling icon. And if there's a Mount Rushmore of wrestling icons, he is by far on it. By far. And it ain't even close. He is on it. He was a bona fide superstar in the 80s. And then just increased his superstardom in the 90s. He had crazy runs in 2 different decades. We're not going to sit up here and act like that shit don't matter, because it does. A lot of us wouldn't have even got around to wrestling if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan and the superstar that he became, the household name that he became. So we cannot discredit that. But we also cannot overlook the stuff that he has said in his later years, the comments that he has made, especially towards Black people. We cannot sit up here and discredit that. But for all you people throwing dirt on his name, throwing shots at him now that he's no longer here and happy about that, I would implore you to reconsider this. I would just implore you to reconsider this. Listen, you feel how you feel. I can't tell another grown man or woman how they're going to feel about things. But like I said, I have mixed emotions. Separate Hulk Hogan from Terry Bollea. Because Hulk Hogan meant a lot to a lot of people. And Terry Bollea, yes, he was a husband. He was a father. He had a family. And you never want to see anybody lose their life. And at the end of the day, he said what he said. The comments were made. He did what he did. And that's between him and his maker. Who am I to judge? We all have things that we wish we would have never done. But, don't throw dirt on this man's name. He still had a father. He still had kids. So he still had people that probably loved him very much. And even his daughter, Brooke Hogan said, at least, she's at peace, because they were estranged towards his end. She was like, at least I got to say I love you before, in our last conversation. So, he still had a family and people who cared about him, regardless of the man that he was. So, Hulk Hogan, going at 71, craziness. For all you people out there who remember Hulk Hogan for all the things that he did in the ring, and you woke up very sad yesterday, I feel bad for y'all. I understand. Like I said, I am one with mixed emotions. But because of this man, a lot of us wrestling fans are wrestling fans. So we have to acknowledge the good and the bad. So, wow. That's all I got for y'all. As always, I'm on to the next one. Everybody be safe out there. Enjoy the day. And be safe, man. Just be safe. I'm out. Peace.